Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, we got ourselves a very special guest this evening. Nick Napolitano has joined the podcast. How you doing,
Hello.
Nick?
I'm fine. How are you guys this evening?
Good. It's your first time on the podcast, right?
First time. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here. You are here to talk about Nintendo's marketing. Nintendo has had crazy marketing over the years, from marketing stunts to, playing with power, get in or get out, born to play, all of those stuff. We'll be discussing those in the main topic. And Nick, you are here to discuss what that looks like for Nintendo. In the news, we'll be discussing some fun news that includes one of our very own, David Howe, featured on Nintendo Life. The announcement of Game Builder Garage, Famicom Detective Club games, more companies coming to E3, and some Waluigi stuff and Wario news.
Waluigi news. That's a big week.
Yeah, it is a big week.
It's always nice when Waluigi's in the news.
Before we get started in the news, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, doing okay. It's been a hectic week, but I'm glad to be here with y'all tonight, chilling.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great, man. I finally feel settled. We, my girlfriend and I bought a house, so it feels nice to, as you guys can see the office. Well, some of you can see the office behind me. Yeah, it feels good to, there was a month there where there was tension because we hadn't settled in, but we got over the hump and we're feeling good.
You don't wake up in a panic about where you are now?
No, I just live in a panic about everything about my life.
Those are the only brief moments of peace.
Yeah. Yep.
I do want to say, Patrick, it's very nice to have you back on the show.
Welcome
you were
back.
So sorely missed last week.
Y'all are way too kind. I listened to the episode and laughed and smiled so much because you just talked about me the whole time.
Yeah.
That warmed my heart.
That's what happens when I host. Is we don't really talk about Nintendo stuff. We just talk about Patrick.
You did a great job. Your only error was bringing me up so much.
I'll take that. That goes straight to my head. Thank you.
I was thankful that y'all were so kind about that. But truth be told, I don't think you need me.
Oh, no. I think our listeners would disagree.
Yeah, well, I agree.
How was camping? Did you get bit by any bugs?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that y'all mentioned that because we were camping in Colorado Bend State Park in Texas, and it's spring, right, or whatever, and so caterpillar is season like fucking crazy in that park. Those poisonous. I mean, there's variety of them.
They're the things that turn into butterflies, right?
Well, some of them turn into moths, but yes. Okay. If I can be a little bit pedantic.
I know what a caterpillar is. I was just kidding. I'm sorry.
But, they're the really fuzzy ones are poisonous. Or, if you touch them, it's like... So I stepped on one barefoot. And my wife, got one on her leg. Yeah, so we did get stung by bugs.
That's why you always pack Scotch tape on a camping trip.
Yes. Yeah. Lesson learned. We were later, we got home. There was no cell service, so we couldn't really look up how to deal with it. But which was one of the best things about camping, actually, by the way, was just unplugging. But yeah, I was like, oh, we should throw duct tape in our camping bag for that reason, right?
Did you bring your Switch,
out
though?
The needles. I did bring my Switch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, very disconnected. You got to bring it.
Disconnected from the internet, I guess I should say.
I was playing Pac-Man 99 online. And
with our, this is going to turn into a camping podcast, but with our son, we take him camping a lot, but he's 6 and he can't hike all day. And honestly, this is about the edge of what I like to camp in Texas anyway, because it's starting to be fucking hot.
Yeah.
And so we usually, mid to late afternoon is just chill out in the tent and so bring the Switch along when we played some new Pokemon Snap.
Oh yeah.
Out in nature.
Perfect game to play in nature. A game about going in nature, photographing animals.
Yeah. It's like playing Firewatch in a Firewatch tower.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. I went to Vegas last
That's
week.
right.
I went to Omega Mart, the new Meow Wolf installation in Las Vegas. Had a great fucking time. Spent, somewhere to 5 to 6 hours inside of that world. It was great.
Nice.
And if you want to see a city that says they have COVID restrictions but aren't following COVID restrictions, go to Las Vegas.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was insane. And I kind of love and hate Vegas because everything's at a 10. Everything's like fighting for your attention. Big signs, big lights, big personalities. It's all insane. But
It's like the distillation of the American dream, Las Vegas.
100%. You tell us we can't build a capitalistic empire in a desert. Vegas says, fuck you, I'm doing it.
Water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're making it happen. Even the beds are at a 10. I can't sleep when I'm in Vegas. Everything's so loud.
It's like vibrating.
All right. Well, so last week's episode was on new Pokemon Snap, and we're breezed through this. We got lots of nice comments and discussion from a lot of our regulars, but a couple to shout out. This was funny because in the episode when you talked about the Super Mario Party news, Matthew, you were like, I bet you Lee's excited about this. And of course, on YouTube, Lee was like, into it. Let's play.
Yeah.
So Lee,
maybe we'll stream that or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun, actually.
We should do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then, we always love to hear from our listeners and viewers. So please, reach out to us. We take listener questions. We're going to be doing some special episodes. A friend of ours, Ivy, just sent us a question. Thank you, Ivy. Shout out to you. And we'd love to hear anybody else thoughts on this episode or, share the podcast, that kind of stuff. Subscribe on YouTube, please. We've got plans for that.
Getting close. We'll do that. We'll do that question and answer episode here soon.
Yeah, I think so. And then this kind of right before we get in the news, this kind of leads into the first news item. I wanted to share some personal news before we do the official news. Y'all, David and Matt know this, and Nick, I just said this before we recorded, but
now I know.
But to share with our listeners, I've decided I've been saving up money for a long time now to quit my job and take some time off. And after doing this podcast and all that and thinking about video games, I'm decided I'm going to try to at least see if I can break into the games industry in one way or another.
Yeah.
So I've always fancied myself a writer. I'm interested in writing for games. I've also got a little bit of background in coding. And so I'm interested in learning Unity and just kind of seeing where all that leads with some dedicated time. So I just want to put that out there. You'll probably hear more about this in the future because I plan on somewhat documenting this journey at least a little bit through streams.
I smell content, Patrick.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet rivers of content. Rivers. That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I've worked at the same job for 18 years.
Too much.
And tomorrow is my 40th birthday. And
wow, tomorrow is your birthday.
Tomorrow is my 40th birthday.
Wow, happy early birthday, Patrick. Wow,
yes, happy early birthday.
Wow, happy birthday.
So it's like I gotta quit my job by the time I'm I gotta figure, like that's sort of a benchmark, of all right, it's time to actually try to do some of the things I've been, I know y'all from comedy and I've been doing stuff on the side and stuff, but I'm ready to.
Well, I personally can't wait to see your original game that's like a paralegal version of Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright. Okay, I think you're going to do a great job. Now that you're all into visual novels,
right,
that seems like
kind of
a great avenue for you. So I'm very excited for this future for you.
Yeah, so this first bit of news then to get into it is what also I wanted to say this about because Game Builder Garage was announced, and this looks like a super fun Nintendo's take on Dreams, or like the PlayStation game, or their own Labo tools extracted from the Labo games with some amount of sharing that fingers crossed will be good. They released a trailer for this. What do y'all think about this Game Builder Garage game?
I think first of all, I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's great that Nintendo is releasing more tools like this for educational purposes. But second of all, rest in fucking peace, Labo. I feel like this means Labo is dead, right? Like completely. Yeah. Like this like is the Labo VR garage just without Labo.
Improved too. Like
right,
I think
right.
that you can tell that it's improved. I messed around with it a little bit on the non-VR Labo kits, but the visual aspect of it's improved a little bit. And I think like with I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like the little emoticon type.
I think they're called nodons.
Yeah, those little things that I think, will help kids that maybe can't read as well still make simple games or something.
Right. Yeah. I just think it's interesting that they just didn't even put the Labo branding on this at all. I think it shows clearly that they're moving away from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from that, it's interesting. It looked like it just seems like the culmination of many pieces of Nintendo's work coming together to like launch an experience that maybe is a tentpole for them for years to come, maybe not. But I mean, there are shades of all the Labo stuff in here. I personally think there are shades of both Mario Maker games in here. And I think any other type of builder, it's just all kind of culminating, and all that market research probably pushed them to continue to build this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it goes.
What looks very much like the Labo car in one of the images.
Right. It's the same robot and everything. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's great. I think like getting kids interested in programming at an early age is super important. There's stuff like Scratch. I don't know if you guys have ever used that. The kind of like visual graphic based programming stuff like for kids. So this seems to be like their take on that. I'm very excited to see what people do with this. I think it's great. I think it's really well priced as well.
Yeah, it's only $30.
Yeah, I think like when I first saw this, I was like, I don't know if I'll pick it up. And I saw $30. I was like, well, that makes that a lot easier. But I think this thing is going to live or die by how easy it is to share stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like Dreams worked because you go to the browse section and you just kind of spend hours like looking for fun games to download or whatever, right? But if this is, like Labo Toy-Con Garage, like for the VR Labo, like the version of this they had for that had 0 exporting options, 0 sharing options. And so I just never felt like I ever needed to pick it up, because it's like, if I get bored making stuff just for myself, then there's nothing else for me to play, right? So I think that I really hope that they add a browsing feature and not just sharing codes.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
I don't think so. On the physical box art, it says like create and share games or something like that. But I think, I still think they're afraid to have a bunch of dicks in the top games or whatever. But I think there might, which kind of eliminates the child audience maybe, but there might still be an adult niche audience that builds its own websites or Reddit or whatever for sharing codes.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a Reddit for sharing codes and stuff like that. It's just like, come on, man. Like that's if we've seen anything with like new Pokemon Snap, it's like just fucking around in new Pokemon Snap and looking at people's photos in game keeps you engaged in the game for longer. So I think it's a good thing to do.
I hope that looking at these screenshots of Game Builder Garage on Amazon with a bunch of like the box art and stuff, it does have a screen where it says share locally. And so it's like sharing it over Wi-Fi or something like that. So maybe they might have something that's like share on the internet or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I know you can like create a code that you can share at least. Like they've definitely confirmed that. But yeah, I think, you're probably right. Probably the best way is to go over to your friend's house and like.
At least there's a way to share it, unlike the Labo one where it felt like you build something cool and then there's no way to export it at all.
Yeah.
It was kind of dumb.
Just make a YouTube video or whatever. That's it.
But anyway, this is coming out June 11th, which is pretty soon. It's about a month away. It's for me personally, like the timing of me quitting my job and my son getting off of school and me trying to get into game development. And like, this is like going to be a great way for he and I to spend the summer. I feel like, so I'm
very
excited about this
serendipitous release.
Yeah, for sure. For me.
Yeah. I do want to play whatever games Magnus makes.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. I'm sure he's excited about it and like planning games. So
cool.
And it supports the mouse. This is the first, I think, Switch game that has shown mouse support. Presumably it'll support a keyboard, though. I don't know if it needs to. We'll see. I know some other games support that there's not been any discussion of that I'm aware of. But unless there's anything else, we'll move on. There's a lot to talk about today.
giving me Mario Paint vibes with that mouse support. It's pretty awesome.
So on May 6th, Nintendo held its end of the fiscal year meeting, and where they released a bunch of data that we always love to pour over. So this is basically information ending with the end of March 2021, which is the fiscal year. They always have this investors meeting, and according to various sources, Nintendo has had a record year for video game company. Perhaps, at least this is some analysts are saying, the best year ever of a video game company, according to operating profits, which I'm not a huge financial person, so I don't, what that means. But the Switch has continued to sell like crazy. Animal Crossing, probably a big part of this. The Switch is almost at 85 million units sold, so it has surpassed, I don't remember where it was last time exactly, but it's surpassed like the 3DS now.
Game Boy Advance, it passed.
Game Boy Advance, that was the other one. So really only the Wii has sold more, and that's probably not that far away.
Right.
More questionable would be like the Game Boy or the Nintendo DS, but
right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely it will pass the Wii this year. I feel like that's almost a certainty. Especially we talked last week about how Nintendo's like aiming for 30 million units sold this year. And I think if they have like good hardware revisions and they keep, building the Switch family, that's a way to increase those numbers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely doable. Whether or not it's going to pass the DS, that's a tall order.
Yeah. But we continue to report on just how well the Switch is selling. Further proof of it. In terms of it's always fun to look at those numbers and fun to look at the software numbers as they update. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still hanging out on top as the most sold Switch game. It's kind of nuts. Over 35 million units. And when you think about 85, million Switches, 35 million Mario Kart 8 Deluxes, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Almost half.
No wonder they don't want to make 9.
Yeah, right. Like I feel like that feeds into the speculation of 9 of just like maybe they're working on it and just like keep polishing it because there's no reason to put it out or whatever, like.
Well, everybody keeps saying too, because Animal Crossing was in second, right? With like, is it 32 million? 32 million? 32 and everybody's like, man, is this the year like Animal Crossing is going to pass Mario Kart 8? And I think it very well could, but also like Mario Kart 8 just keeps selling. Yeah. So maybe never,
I don't think it will. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's point. like Mario Kart 8 sold like 10 million units just last year, and in every month it's in the top 10 of like all video games. So it's, I think it's great. I love Mario Kart 8. I can't think of a way that they would improve the game other than adding new tracks.
Yeah. And it's arguably Nintendo's most accessible IP. So, I mean, it's not surprising that it's surprising that it's selling at that volume, but it's not surprising that it's going to float at the top until they make the next one.
Yeah.
They should make Mario Kart 9, but put it only on the Wii U. That's what they should do.
Oh, yeah.
And then put the deluxe version on the Switch. Exactly. Well, like in the terms of the top 10 software, there's not been a whole lot of updates to that because the top 10 are still more or less the same. But there's been some interesting sellers like under that. Like Ring Fit has now sold over 10 million units. And I think that's a very impressive number too. A bunch of other games have sold well. It's just been banner year for Nintendo.
Yeah. I saw a tweet that was like then deleted soon after today, but it was like talking about the big boomer energy of Ring Fit reviews on Amazon. And it was just like a bunch of people being like, can I play this on my TV or do I need a Nintendo? And it's like, that's who they got with this. You know what I mean? It's like they got that casual blue ocean market for this again. Yeah. It's a good idea for them to go back to that.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's anything specific in terms of, we're still kind of waiting on the English translation of the Q&A that usually comes out a week or so later, the official one that is. But like VGC, Video Game Chronicles, as a little bit of a blurb, and one of the things that's going around is Furukawa at this talking about acquisitions. And it's kind of unclear to me if this was said in this meeting or in an interview with Nikkei, but
I think this was in the Q&A afterwards.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
He's saying that they're interested in really only acquiring companies that have technology that they're interested in, and not necessarily just more development teams. That they're really interested in technological advancements, if you will. So that's interesting to hear, when you think about, especially when you think about Next Level, and they did acquire them, but that might be a outlying case of that they've worked with them for so long and what have you, but maybe they have some innovation going on over at Next Level or something.
Yeah. It's just nice to hear Nintendo talking about how they want to have technological improvement. You know what I mean? Because they're not really known. I mean, they've always been innovators, right? But they're not really known
stuff. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like, it would be really good if they were able to acquire some companies that were able to kind of bring them to the modern era in like the areas where they're really lagging behind. But
yeah, we'll just catch up. I don't need them to just pass anyone. Just catch up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, with all this money they're making, they don't feel like they need to do anything differently, I'm sure. But hopefully, there's been rumors of an online system update. And, when we were talking about Garage or Game Builder Garage or whatever, that kind of made me think maybe it could be integrated with that if there's some sort of sharing through that. We'll see.
We talk about like Nintendo's making all this money, and then Nintendo brings up in this interview about acquisitions. They're going to spend this money on something. But if it's not, publishing houses or developer studios, like what is it? Like, if is it tech? Is it display manufacturing? Is it chip manufacturing? Is it like buying like an arm of like a toy manufacturer? Since we'll talk about later in the episode, like Nintendo's a toy company. Like, I wonder what that would be. What would they spend all this money on?
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question.
We'll find out at E3.
Yeah, maybe. Right. And so moving on then, our next news item, there was an editor of Netflix's Castlevania that apparently went on to a podcast and was making the rounds in the news. They discussed the potential for there being a Legend of Zelda anime. Let me look at this article a little bit closer here.
Okay.
Enhance. I'm doing the tech. I'm going to enhance on this.
Yeah. So this was me. It was this morning I actually found out, or maybe this afternoon. I like looked on Twitter and was like, oh shit, like I'm on Nintendo Life. And Nintendo Life basically like wrote an article about this article that had been written for Zelda Dungeon. David Lasby over at Zelda Dungeon interviewed me just about like basically just like what would you want to see in a Zelda anime, like if you were to do one, because obviously we got Castlevania season 4 is coming out the day after this episode comes out on May 13th. So make sure you watch that, by the way. It's going to be really good. But really, there's no news in this article. It's just me talking about what I would want to see in a Zelda anime.
Doesn't this... Sorry, finish your
thought. No, that's it.
Doesn't this put a lot of stuff we talk about in perspective when it's you that's the person that's being...
Yeah, I try not to be part of the story. Okay, I try not to be part of the story, but sometimes it just happens.
Well, like, we'll speculate about stuff that, these publications report on. And then when it's you that's the person that they're reporting on, you're like, oh, I don't have any information. They're just looking for something to write about. And,
I think really the whole point of this interview is just to like put Powerhouse Animation and Zelda Anime in the same sentence. So now we're manifesting it. We'll wait and see what happens.
I'm probably nothing. I hope you manifested that into reality for yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've already got a great solid pitch for Zelda Anime. They're upside down. Yeah. So we've already got the story. All right. I wrote it in 4th grade.
Great.
So hit me up.
Tiny bit of polishing.
Yeah. It was very nice though to see an interview with me on Nintendo Life. That made me feel really good. Maybe John Cartwright will now come on our podcast.
So maybe this bit of news is great to follow that, because what do people know is the question, right? There's also been news going around about a former developer of the Metroid Prime games, His name is Michael Wyken. I don't know how you say it. Who talked about how they believe a Metroid Prime trilogy would be difficult or unlikely to be ported over to the Switch. They're skeptical that could happen, especially because of Prime 3's motion controls, I think. So I don't know if that means anything. Metroid Prime trilogy hard to grab and slap is what I put on the show notes because can it be grabbed? Can it be slapped? This guy thinks not. But
I could say it can be grabbed, but whether it can be slapped or not is, it's up for debate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think this is a simple grab and slap. I think, like something like F-Zero GX, you could grab and slap, right? Because that game is like built for controllers already. This would definitely need to be reworked. But I mean, the rumor is that it already has been done, right? And I think that it has been. And even this guy this is all kind of on Facebook comments, I think, where this was sourced from originally. But he even said it's like, yeah, it'd be possible. It would just take like a full year of like a 4 to 5 person team. It's like, well, what else has Retro been working on? Like you have to imagine that Tropical Freeze Switch port was all done in house. So that, and they've worked on other projects. Mario Kart 7. They worked in tandem with other people to bring some of the courses out for that game. So it's like this isn't unprecedented for them to have like a subset of people like working on just porting essentially. And so, yeah, I don't think that this means it can't be done. I think it just means that like he probably wouldn't have done it if he was still at Retro. You know what I mean? Right.
And also like, I just think this is funny to follow on that last news just to remind us that like, just because some guy says something doesn't mean anything. Right? Like,
who you calling some guy?
Some guy and also former.
Yeah, in this case, former, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm calling you some guy, David.
Okay, that's cool. I'd rather be some guy than former some guy.
So, we talked several weeks ago about E3 this year, which is coming up very soon too, in about a month. A number of companies that announced they're coming to E3, including Nintendo, but some more companies have been announced. And in fact, one company has retracted going to E3.
Who's that?
Konami is no longer saying they're going to be there. So we were all like, why is Konami going to be at E3? They must have something going on. Well, they backed out. So I guess that whatever it is that they wanted to announce is not ready. For them
I did actually see their... I didn't know that they had been announced in the first place, but I did see their like statement that they put out, and at least it sounds like they're really working on something. You know what I mean? Which I'm like personally so excited for Getsu Fumiden whenever that comes out. But it's like sounds like this would have been something past that.
Yeah, it must have been, right? I thought that might be related, but no.
It's just nice to hear that they're not just working on like casino machines or whatever. Right. They're also doing video games still.
But in addition to the previously announced companies, some of the bigger ones that are coming that we know of now is Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, and a handful of others were announced. Not just like software developers, but some like some of the hardware, like Turtle Beach and some stuff was also announced. So E3 is looking to be a decent show, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Remember when everybody was like, yo, would anyone even like come to an E3 if they did it again? I'm so glad to see that all these companies like see the value in having all their shit in one place for 1 week. You know what I mean? It was like, I was really worried. Everybody was spelling so much doom and gloom for E3 and saying, oh, everybody will just do their own thing. But it really is better to have it all together.
Oddly, I do think the pandemic may have helped E3. In a weird way.
How do you figure?
Well, I figure in the way that you're just talking about is before COVID, people were like, is there any point to having it?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we kind of saw what happens without it. And now maybe people are starved to go to an event.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like there might be more excitement about this E3 than there has been in a while, just for those reasons.
Do you think Jeff Keighley is sad?
Probably. It didn't work out for Jeff.
I think he wanted to be E3.
Yeah, I agree with you, Patrick. I think if this is the year where E3 probably will live for a long time or die, because there's excitement, because it's possibly coming back after the pandemic. If like viewership is low or attendance is low, then maybe it won't come back. But right now, it seems like people are on board and excited about it. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
I'm pumped too. It was kind of sad how people quickly jumped on like, yeah, it's dead. Let it go. It bummed me out. It's such a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope like enough people are vaccinated next year to where we can actually finally go. Like the first year that we got like press badges to like go to E3 got canceled because of COVID. So obviously we're not gonna like crash the live stream or anything. But like hopefully next year we can actually make it out to the LA Convention Center.
If Dr. Fauci is to be believed, maybe we can.
Yeah.
I heard him say in some interview that, about a year from now, things should be as normal as they're going to get. But we'll see. Coming out this week, May 14th, is the Famicom Detective Club games. And I wanted to make sure we mentioned this because I think this is really cool. Because as David mentioned, I've kind of gotten into visual novels, at least the Phoenix Wright games. And I'm excited about this because it spawned those. These are full remakes of these old what's the name of the system they were on? It was a Japan only like add on to the Famicom, the like disc system or whatever.
The Famicom disc system,
so they were on that system, and I just think it's cool that we're getting this in the West, and I want this to be people to check this out if it's something that you're so inclined to check out. I've already pre-ordered one of them. I'm spoiler alert for what you've been playing recently. I've been furiously trying to beat the last Ace Attorney game so that I'm ready to play this on Friday.
Right.
Because I'm really excited about it. They just look cool. Hopefully with the remake aspect, I don't know. I'm rambling. Somebody else.
I'm excited about it too. I've got it preloaded on my system right now, ready to go. Definitely, I'll be playing this after I binge all of season 4 of Castlevania, coming out on Netflix May 13th.
And after I check out that Nintendo Life article.
right, exactly. No, but yeah, I'm very excited. This would be like a fun game. I feel like this would be a fun game for us both to play and have like a little book club for. You know what I mean? Totally. It's very story based.
Hey, this next question is sponsored by Powerhouse Animation here in Austin, Texas. Well, okay. I'm not familiar with this game series. I think I brought this up maybe a couple months. What's the pitch for Famicom Detective Club?
Yeah, I would love to hear this too. I have no frame of reference for this game.
I'm certainly not an expert, but I say that all the time, right? That's like, y'all say that. I say that all too much. But my understanding is it's kind of like those old adventure games we used to have, like early PC games kind of, right? Like where you're kind of looking around, and then it's a lot of dialogue options and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're investigating murders. So a lot of sort of like you look on the screen and you move your cursor over to this, and then you discover some piece of information that then you can talk to this person about and that kind of thing, which, it's sort of, we call them visual novels now, but they call them adventure games, right? In Japan, we've talked about that before, but like, I think that they do kind of tie into old point and click games a little bit, in that way. So I think it's just semi-serious. The Phoenix Wright games are actually very tongue in cheek and kind of funny, but not always funny, but like, they're trying to be.
I feel like the Phoenix Wright games are almost like parodies of these games.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, but I think a big reason why this release in particular has so many people excited is that this was like a massive formative game for both Nintendo and for the visual novel genre when it came out on the Famicom in Japan, and it just was never localized, right? And so this is like one of these nice, like kind of recent string of localizations that we've been getting for old Famicom games out in the West finally, right?
And a remake too, not just like a localization of
right,
like
exactly.
The Fire Emblem game. Like
pretty
updated anime graphics. Which I haven't, played it yet, but it looks like there are parts that are animated and stuff.
Right. It looks a lot better than the Phoenix Wright games in that where those seem like more like still photos, and these actually have good animations to them. And like one of the characters, Ayumi, I think is her name, and I might be wrong there, but had a trophy in Super Smash Brothers Melee, was considered as a playable character in Smash like multiple times. There are rumblings that she might even still show up and as like one of the final DLC characters because this game is coming out. So it's like it's just like a big kind of cultural touchstone game in Japan that's finally seeing release, which is really exciting.
Yeah. That's why I think it's cool that we're getting in. I think it could fly under a lot of people's radar. So I wanted to make a big deal about it this week. There's been talk about in the European region, like the PAL version of these games, the old 3DS Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games, the cartridges are no longer working, at least according to this is informal. This is just a lot of people on message boards and stuff saying this. But the cartridges aren't working anymore, and this has caused a lot of discussion about why, and how long can physical media last. And I think this kind of ties into something we talked about, I don't know when that was, 4 or 5 weeks ago, where we talked about game preservation and digital games and all that. Because just because you think a digital store is going to close, I'll buy all my games physical. VHS tapes don't last forever, cassette tapes don't last forever, and apparently 3DS cartridges might stop working 7 years later or whatever too. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of speculation about why, and there's even some people thinking they may have found ways to fix them by like resoldering a chip in them and stuff like that. But just interesting to see this, because that's not that long ago.
Yeah, I will say though, just before everybody starts getting into a fucking 3DS cart dying panic, this is happening only in the PAL region, and this is not all PAL versions of this game either. It's like a lot of what I'm hearing online is that there's speculation of like a bad batch was created upon the actual like manufacture of these carts out of Japan or wherever they ended up manufacturing these. So I, as far as I understand, no other games have had this issue. And then, like I said, also the majority of PAL region Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire carts are still working. But that's not to say that you're not wrong, Patrick. I mean, like, NES cartridges are starting to not work anymore. A lot of it has to do with like battery saves and stuff like that, and those going bad. But certainly this is just good, if good, more excuses and more like justification for the archiving of games in a digital format from like a fan perspective.
Yeah. And just accepting the impermanence of the universe.
We're not going to get into this again.
Well, that's disappointing. I wanted to get into that, but
if you have something to say about the inevitable heat death of the universe, feel free, Nick.
No, I'll hold it.
But I did think if you're interested in this, Luigi Blood, who's like a data miner that we sometimes talk about or mention, they had a really nice thread on Twitter about just kind of the mechanism of different cartridges and how long they might last and that kind of thing, which is kind of interesting to people who are interested in physical collection and that kind of stuff. And moving on, while we're talking about Twitter, Twitter changed its image cropping. So it used to be you couldn't post, really tall or big things on Twitter. They would like crop and that kind of stuff, but they've changed that, and Nintendo got into the fun of posting tall things and posted Pokey, all the different Nintendo accounts around the world, like Nintendo of Europe or Nintendo of America and all that, posted different like really tall Mario images. And I didn't know what was going on at first. And I saw like a giant piranha plant posted by, I can't remember if it was Europe or what. And I was like, what the fuck? There's going to be a piranha plant game or something, you know what I mean? Right, and then I started to see all this happening. I was like, oh, okay. But it was, I just feel like this item and the next item kind of lead us into the main topic too, a little bit of Nintendo's marketing. It's just kind of fun to see some of these renders go up of giant Pokey and stuff.
This is a very silly news item, and I love it very much. I love that the news here is Nintendo posts tall pictures on Twitter.
Yeah, I love it, and Patrick was right. It's just like a good image of how Nintendo. There's things that they follow suit on, and it's if every business is going to test out this tall thing, then of course they're going to test out some tall stuff.
Yeah, I did like seeing the Pokey because Pokey is tall boy. Pokey is certainly tall boy.
Yeah. And then while we're talking about like renders and stuff, we've never talked about Nintendo Minute before on this podcast, have we? Kit and Krista's this is sort of another great marketing thing we have never really talked about. Nintendo does these videos with this man and this woman where they kind of like test out all the new products and that kind of stuff. And they did an unboxing video with the Nintendo Switch Lite, the blue one that caused all the color controversy. And playing along with that color controversy, they kind of like compared it to different Nintendo characters, including Waluigi, who's purple. And they showed a new render of Waluigi, a particularly How would y'all describe this picture of Waluigi?
Lewd, rude, lascivious, and crude. Is how I would describe.
The best. Chef's kiss best.
Fuckable.
Contorted.
Yeah, his butt is out. He's got a hand behind his head. His tongue's out. I don't know how you describe this, but they flashed this like never before seen Waluigi render up when they're talking about Waluigi, which in and of itself, whatever. But there's like also a new Power A Waluigi controller. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like it just, and like there's been a lot of speculation about Waluigi in Smash Brothers. Maybe
Kate McKinnon played Waluigi on SNL this past weekend.
The pieces are falling together.
Very bad, but the best part of that sketch was, still very bad.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's pointing into the year of Waluigi in 2022. I don't know.
Let's fucking go.
David, I haven't. Can you comment on a Waluigi anime if Powerhouse Animation built it?
I can only speak for myself and not on behalf of Powerhouse Animation Studios, but I would love to do a Waluigi anime.
And like, I don't know, the Waluigi image from the Mario Golf game has also been coming out this week, which he's also kind of in a sexy pose for that one. He's got his legs way spread, and a really nasty look on his face.
They're just opening the door for Waluigi 18 and older.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, obviously everybody's going to be speculating on whether or not this means that Waluigi's coming to Smash. I just, for the record, would love to see that happen. I think he would be a great Mario sports representative in Smash, but I think that really what this is leading to, I think, is that at E3 we're going to be seeing Super Mario Party 2 for sure, because there's like the new Diddy Kong render, there's this new Waluigi render that's never been seen before that they didn't like talk about at all, and I think that we're just going to be starting to see a lot of updated renders of characters for the new Super Mario Party game, that and like the online infrastructure being like built into the old one. I think it's all leading towards that, personally.
That's a bummer of a probably true thing. You know?
Do you not like parties, Patrick?
Lee is furious right now, but I would rather have other things happen.
The Waluigi dating sim game. That's what you want.
Yeah, that is. I want like the Waluigi leisure suit Larry.
Waluigi suit Larry.
Perfect.
All right. Well, y'all mention that SNL sketch? I haven't watched it yet. Is that worth watching, or should I just skip it?
I mean, it's worth watching just as long as you're okay with like cringing a little bit out of your skin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's worth watching for you guys since you have a Nintendo podcast.
Right.
To speak about it, but
we should probably do a reaction and breakdown video on our YouTube channel.
Man, it's bad.
That's what I hear.
It's interesting. I think it's nice. Clearly a lot of the SNL like writers and performers are gamers. You know, like I know like Bowen Yang is a big gamer. Melissa Villasenor is a big like Switch gamer in particular. So it's like, I think it's nice that they're like at least doing this kind of stuff, and they do gaming related stuff. They did like a Fortnite sketch a little bit ago as well. It's just weird seeing Elon Musk play Wario. That's kind of a sight I never really needed in my life.
Yeah. I agree with you that it looks nice, but you know, after seeing the sketch, and there's something, it's not what it seems. And at the end, it's like, yep, this is the worst possible case.
Yeah.
I think for this subject matter.
Yeah. No, and I think Nintendo probably did not appreciate it ultimately because of what they did with the characters. Although it was kind of funny seeing Grimes as Peach, even though she had an Italian accent, which is not canon.
That does not make sense.
But I thought Grimes at least looked like Peach. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we talked about the SNL sketch. Good job.
Yeah, much to Kyle's chagrin. It was like, can we just pretend this never happened?
Sorry, Kyle. All right. We should take a break there then. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about our main topic for this week with Nick, which is Nintendo's marketing strategies. All right, so this week we are talking with Nick about Nintendo marketing, how they've done their marketing over the years, they're obviously looked to a lot by marketing firms as an example. We're here in the US, so I did want to point that out, that it's a global company. It's a Japanese company. So what they do here is probably different. If to our European listeners, you may not have heard these slogans that we're going to mention and that kind of thing. But Nick, one of the reasons we are doing this is this was your idea. You've worked in marketing, right? And you've said you've looked to Nintendo strategies before.
Yeah, I have 12 years in marketing, mostly strategy and content creation, kind of branding, building. Especially the two big stops for me, my current job, which is working for an escape room, kind of building a small brand in a city that's also highly creative. And then I also did marketing for a local, at the time, which was a local small solar startup in New Orleans that before I left had expanded to like 6 markets, I believe. We went into Florida, New York, Connecticut. But I mean, as a lifelong Nintendo fan, that's, one of the beacons of like, if I'm going to get into marketing, at least let me look to my hobbies and heroes and all that. And I mean, they've always just done a good, fun, clean's a bad word, but in the marketing realm, clean job of like getting their message out. I mean, we'll talk about some of the stuff in the 80s and early 90s that Sega got on them about for being clean. But when I say clean, like the clean, clear messaging of what their product is, who it's for, and how it serves those people. I mean, I don't know that any other gaming entity has gotten to that level, even today, with the titans that are Xbox and Microsoft and Sony.
Well, yeah, and Nintendo's been around for a really long time, right? I think that's one of the things too, right? Like, and what other huge early 80s video game companies have the staying power? Like Sega wasn't as big then and isn't as big now, and Atari obviously kind of blew up and all that.
We all remember the huge marketing blitz for the Hanafuda decks that they were selling back in the 1800s. So
that's right. I mean, and you just make a joke. You made a joke about that, but you really have to look at that track record, right? I mean, it's it's been a gaming company for over 100 years. And then even some of the weird stuff that they've picked up from that early or late 1800s to the 80s when the NES took off. I mean, they were an instant rice company at some point. They made some food stuffs. I actually was kind of brushing up a little bit today and read, I couldn't verify, but they also had a chain of love hotels at some point.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah. And other various projects. And it's all, but they've always had a hand in gaming and toys. And the track record shows, I mean, the diligence and the professional manner of the executives and the management of that company pushed through and created a viable company that made a viable product, and they knew how to market it, and they knew what they were doing through those years and years and years of market research that they had built up literally since the 1880s. Right. So,
and I think the start of them being a video game company is also a success of their marketing, because there was the big video game crash in the late 70s, early 80s that Nintendo was able to push through by marketing themselves as a toy company and to kids, and as get sold in toy stores and that kind of thing.
That's Rob the Robot, right? With Gyromite, like that never would have been they never would have included that had they been trying to just be a gaming company. Like, it was like, hey, look, you can play with this toy robot. Also, it's a gaming system. You know what I mean? So that was already brilliant, like right off the bat.
Right. And then also, as much as I revere their strategy, a lot of that timing, a lot of that in the 80s was perfect timing. There was a fair amount of luck in their trajectory in Japan per the development of arcade games and all that, and the toys, and coinciding with the crash happening and not affecting Japan as much as it affected the United States, that got them to that power position that lasted, arguably at some points, still is pretty strong to today, but I mean, obviously dips in the 2000s and 2010s. I mean, it's hard to argue with their track record of success, but all of that starting with kind of a little bit of stroke of good timing and luck.
Absolutely. That's always underrated in success stories, right?
Yeah.
So all of us were either not around or babies in those sort of early 80s days, so we don't really have memories of that, but we just kind of know about how they did that, and like you said, Rob the Robot and all that. But starting in the 90s, what do y'all remember, or whenever, maybe late 80s, do y'all remember any early Nintendo commercials or store displays or anything? Is there any sort of, I'm just kind of curious about personal marketing stories from early age.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the stuff that I remember most was in, back when malls and retail was king. All the big electronic stores like had specific like Nintendo sections, right? And it was very appealing. It was very like hands-on, come try our product with the big Nintendo branding and everything like that. And that was in like every mall in the United States, right? Like that's something that Nintendo of America did really well early on, was capturing the interest in like the shopping culture, right? So I remember from an early age just seeing those and getting hyped whenever I would, it was obviously like catering to kids. You know what I mean? Much to probably our parents' dismay.
Right.
But it totally worked, and they figured out how to do that really well in the 90s, I think.
Yeah, I think on top of that too, they also catered to they used the data from those mega malls for specifically not only where the kids are going to hang out, but where those parents were shopping for various things. That strategy was very specific and very targeted to get to those kids through the consumer data that they had on shopping habits of parents and those who would most likely be in the mall. I mean, they were, in your department stores, in your electronic stores. I even remember there was in the Oakwood Mall, which is one of the small malls here, they had a display in one of the bookstores in the mall.
Right.
They were just everywhere. They made sure to get in where they needed to get in so their audience would be able to get their hands on a Nintendo piece of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
As you all are saying, like, retail space, especially in the 80s where everyone shopped and bought things, space is limited. So Nintendo at some point had to say like, hey, we are going all in on this system and buy, big portions. I remember growing up, like Toys R Us having an entire, like 3/4 of the electronic section was all Nintendo games. And then like the Power Glove was behind a glass. It was like a museum of Nintendo accessories that you could just like stare at and take the ticket up to the front.
I just feel nostalgia hearing you describe that like display window like it's in a museum. Yeah. I mean, they also, they catered to the mall culture with, I think, probably their biggest piece of marketing in the early 90s, which was the Nintendo World Championships too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was based off of that department store mall strategy to get those champions into those events. And then, I mean, those events spawned movies, TV events, products. I mean, this strategy was genius for the time.
The big, like, what is it? Not the Master. That's a Paul Thomas Anderson.
The Wizard.
Yeah, the Wizard. The Wiz is a Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. but the Wizard, yeah. Like that whole movie was part of their big marketing strategy for Super Mario Brothers 3. I think one of my favorite kind of like early like cutthroat Nintendo marketing things that you can talk about is the whenever they were like sued, there was like a class action lawsuit for their like marketing tactics and the fact that they were like very predatory like against children with all their marketing stuff. The way that they then paid out that class action lawsuit was anybody who was affected by it got a coupon for $10 towards the Nintendo product of their choice, which basically just then meant that they were spending more on Nintendo products. Even that drew a whole bunch of ire. And it's just the early 90s, late 80s Nintendo was fucking cutthroat. Like, we'll do whatever we need to do to get out there. That's a very interesting era of Nintendo to read about.
And I think
definitely shrewd businessship within. I mean, I think you can look at 80s Japanese business culture and 80s American business culture, and they're pretty parallel at the point.
Mm-hmm.
Just a shrewd move to, you're paying those debts, but then you're also forcing them to spend another $190, $200
right,
for their class action settlement. Again, kind of genius.
I just want to say that, like, I think that you can see just how successful it was by the fact that Nintendo became the term in that era for video game machine, right? And obviously, early on, there weren't as many strong competitors, but the sort of joke as we were kids is your mom calling your Xbox a Nintendo or whatever, like,
right.
because that's
like Kleenex.
Right. Yeah. There was such a market saturation that it became synonymous with the product, even though, it's just the company name or whatever.
Yeah, to this day too. I mean, boomers and non-gaming Xers still will call a gaming system Nintendo. I mean, that's speaks to the power of their market saturation and their advertisement strategies.
So we kind of hinted at this, but Sega obviously had a bit of a rise in the 90s there, and poked fun at Nintendo's clean image, not necessarily their clean strategy, like you're saying. Nice distinction there, but like the sort of squeaky clean for kids image, and kind of made themselves out to be the cooler one, and had a lot of success. Had a lot of success in dumping money as Sega of America into kind of fighting that. And I don't know if we want to talk about that era, but I think what's interesting is the reaction that happened by Nintendo, where Nintendo, and maybe some of this was just general early mid 90s stuff, but like where Nintendo's marketing went a little bit edgier. Like I think this gets posted on our Facebook group a lot. That weird Yoshi's Island ad is, I feel like, the perfect example.
Where the dude just like explodes.
Yeah, he's like at a buffet or at a restaurant, and they just keep bringing him more food.
That ad is incredible. There's so many things. It evokes the game. If for some people it evokes that Monty Python sketch too. There's definitely a little bit of like that old comedy, and then just in a way kind of a fuck you to Sega of like, all right, well, we're gonna play this game. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 very clear brand eras for Nintendo from the 80s to now. And I think, we're looking at, before this, we're looking at that clean cut. We're also a toy company. We have our hands in everything. And then they got big enough to where they had a fierce enough competitor that came in and really pushed them to this second era, which I think it's this edgy / we're also going to keep up with the competition. We're going to make sure that we're also edgy. We're going to find some edgier IPs, and we're going to try to make sure that our hardware is keeping up with the newest hardware that's coming out. Which I think for a little while served them, but they kind of got left in the dust a bit when you get into the GameCube era and afterwards until, you hit the Wii. So,
right.
It's very different marketing wise. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that second era that you're talking about, there was some gold in there for sure, especially when you look at like print ads of that time. Yes. That's when it was just like everybody was just about like weird Cronenberg-esque body horror. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was like, whenever they would show, like there was the Pokemon ad where it was like a dude like crushing up a bunch of Pokemon in a trash compactor, or the print ads for the Game Boy that were like very fleshy and like into all of it. Yeah, and there was also a lot of like weird sexuality like built into their advertisement in that era, and it's just like, but it was also like everything was like that in the early 2000s. Like everything was kind of dripping in that weird kind of like yeah, I don't know. It's yes. The only word I can find for it is fleshy.
Well, no, I think that's the right word for it, to be honest. Yeah. Now that we're evoking those images, but I think that's the one thing that I would say Nintendo didn't completely handle in house, and I feel like when you look at those advertising campaigns, specifically print and some of those TVs, that's the one thing that they would source out to partner ad agencies.
Sure.
And why, if you look at a lot of the ads of the same era, they have Nintendo's feel on it, but it's similar to the type of stuff. I mean, I feel like those Nintendo and Sega ads looked a lot like some of those late 90s Pepsi ads too.
Yeah,
a lot of that claymation, a lot of that screaming,
yeah.
MTV generation stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which all that stuff is about 5 to 7 years behind the actual content that was created that inspired it, right? Yeah. I definitely think there's some gnarly, fun, surrealist stuff from that era that like, let's keep it up, let's keep edgy, that people remember fondly, as strange as it is, some of this fleshy, weird, gooey stuff. But again, speaks to that strategy, right? They're keeping up with the stuff that people loved about advertising in the 90s. I mean, or what worked in the 90s with the market research, but still keeping consistent with quality products. I mean, if we're talking about that time, kind of getting into the 64, I mean, they enter the gate and hit a 1-2 combo with Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, right? Mm-hmm. So they're keeping the consistency and quality of their products high while the branding and messaging is also high, and it's carrying them through. And that's, how they pummeled Sega into dust, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd be curious to hear about, you kind of broke it into 3 eras, and then hear about sort of that dip, if you will, of the GameCube era. And obviously the Wii was successful, but then maybe the dip of the Wii U. Like, where do you break, or how do you kind of see those eras where Nintendo had not so much success and then kind of a big success and then dramatic not so much success again? Yeah. And obviously their handhelds were doing well too, so like that's kind of a weird and
the handhelds, while they're in the same brand, it felt so separate. When you when I looked back, I felt like I was getting marketed an equally high quality product, but it was 2 different machines. I mean, it feels like they focused when they realized they were starting to lose steam on the GameCube front. Because I do think I include GameCube in that let's try to keep up with everyone, but it just didn't. It wasn't able to. It wasn't able to keep up with PlayStation or Xbox, PlayStation 2 or Xbox. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at that time there was a shift to like, well, what's the thing that's going to differentiate us in the market? And it's handhelds, right? So they carried through that tradition of the Game Boy, because around that time, I believe, I can't remember the exact year that the Game Boy fell off and DS came out, but that was around that same time where you start seeing that transition from the old school hardware to the new DS, which led to 3DS. And so a lot of that energy, when they saw that the market share for Nintendo consumers, not the blue ocean, but people who consistently bought Nintendo, were shifting to those handhelds because the quality and the consistency was there instead of in GameCube. I feel like that was probably that first big dip of not failure, but just potential irrelevancy for Nintendo, which it never really hit. But I mean, I think fondly on GameCube, and I'm sure everybody on this podcast does, and everybody listening does.
I love the GameCube.
It just didn't. It just wasn't. It was the first time in Nintendo's product line that they just didn't keep up.
Well, yeah, everybody wanted the kind of like hip new thing, and like I feel like the GameCube was the last time, and it was less powerful than the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, but it was essentially up to par with them, right? Like that was kind of, I feel like the GameCube era was the last time that they tried to like go toe to toe with the big guys as far as like graphical fidelity and game experience and stuff like that is concerned. And it just didn't work out for them. And I think that's when you start to see them turning to like, technological innovation, different new ways to play and stuff like that. Yeah. Motion controls, right. Or the blue ocean strategy, right? Like pivoting, right? A lot of that was Iwata too. He talks about that some in his book, but, and I think that, I mean, would you say that would be then the third kind of like pillar of Nintendo marketing?
Exactly. So for me, the third pillar or the third kind of generation of this is Nintendo knows what they can do well. They know that they can, instead of keeping up with these companies, innovate instead of trying to basically kill themselves by trying to keep up with the competition. Mm-hmm. And I think Iwata and I think also Reggie had a big hand in pushing the company to that direction, which gave us the Wii, which I think while it didn't keep up graphically, I think the demand and the excitement for that product was equal to the same the consoles in the same generation. Mm-hmm. I think there was definitely a dip with the Wii U because I personally think Nintendo just got cocky and thought, well, people will get it. It's an extension of one of our best-selling consoles of all time. And we're adding a thing that theoretically should have made performance a lot. Oh, not performance, but gameplay a lot better. Exactly, that gamepad.
Before we start talking about the Wii U, we could spend an entire episode on ups and downs of that. But I think like going back to Nintendo marketing strategy, like Nintendo Wii is like a really easy sell. All you have to do is show someone using it, show a few game clips, and a person can imagine themselves bowling or like fighting. And that's kind of the joy of what Nintendo brings to its marketing is it shows the product, it usually shows the piece of software, and then the user or the buyer consumer can imagine themselves in this world.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that completely. And they built a machine that allowed for them to harken back to an era where that product testing that we're talking about in the early generations in the NES and SNES days. I mean, that's where the Wii U shines with its or the Wii shined in its marketing, where you went to the kiosk, you saw the PlayStation or the Xbox kiosk with that controller that was just hard mounted just to play one or two demos, or you go grab a couple of Wiimotes and you try out that golf game and you try out Wii Sports.
It definitely felt like for the first time in a while, like, oh, we're kind of nearing like a new future of video games, right? It was like, it felt futuristic at the time to like use your body in the same way that VR feels futuristic these days. It was kind of like, even though it was so rudimentary and it was really just using a waggle as a button press, you know what I mean? It wasn't really the future that they were promising. That was really Wii Motion Plus, right? But like at the time, man, it was like, I'd never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel the same way. I didn't when I picked up and tried it for the first time. It was crazy to me just how as simple it was, and also the success is in the proof of it all that PlayStation and Xbox tried to follow suit as fast as they could. Mm-hmm. So Nintendo, again, with their consistency in their products, when they finally kind of readjusted their strategy and went, we're not going to keep up. We're going to take what works best. We're going to look at our consumer data and then find the middle of what people want from our products. So we try to retain the player base, while also creating products that are going to really go after the market share of this, this new pool of gamers. I was looking at this stat that I pulled specifically from 2007 to 2010. The market share of North American video game players was 42% in 2007, and in 2010 it grew to 62%. And that 20% growth was mostly from the Wii. And just its accessibility and going after that blue ocean strategy of finding gamers, finding people who are easy ins to try gaming for the first time through whatever game or interface or device that they're marketing.
Yeah. Like David, to your point, like you briefly mentioned that, the Wii is just using an accelerometer, and all that does from a software perspective is push a button. It's not like technologically advanced, but it's such a simple concept, and it's smoke and mirrors to the average consumer that like, it doesn't matter how simple it is. If it feels like futuristic or fun, people are going to enjoy it. And that's like the power of marketing.
Right. It's like in order to play Wii Tennis, all you got to do is go like this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But how many times do you see that? Everybody like stands up and does the big swing and the backhand and everything. And, and they do all the stuff. And that's because it's natural to them. Right. It's lowering the barrier to entry to somebody who like looks at a controller and doesn't know what to make heads or tails of.
Right. It's natural to them. And also when you look at that early Wii marketing, that's what Nintendo was pushing for you to do. They weren't pushing for you to sit on the couch and do this. Yeah. They had people up serving or actually lining up their putt and, going from the end of the lane and actually bowling. So I think all of those things come into play.
So maybe then we can move on now to the Wii U and then what I would like to talk about in particular too is the current the lead up to the Switch and the marketing for the Switch, because I think even though you've kind of broken it into three categories, and maybe it kind of ties into the way you framed it, but I think the Switch advertising has been a little bit different. What do y'all think happened with the Wii U? And like you said, you think they got cocky and just didn't market it well as a different machine? Because I know there's, at least anecdotally, a lot of people say, they just thought it was an add-on, or you'll hear that the naming maybe was poor. They didn't do a good job. They just kind of were riding the coattails of the Wii.
Everybody says that the name Wii U is what made it tank. And I think that there is some like truth to that. And I think it certainly didn't help. But I think Nick, you are right. I think they just assumed that they wouldn't have to try as hard this time because they were already in everybody's households. Right. And it was like, man, they needed to do something to like really differentiate it from the previous console. Cause like the Wii U, I love the Wii U, and like the possibilities of what you could do with the gamepad and the screen, like those were really downplayed. You know what I mean? Like in most of the marketing for it. Also just like the commercials that you would see were like very kid centric and like very like families playing with their children and all this kind of stuff. And at that point, we were already seeing the demographic of gamers, well, obviously skew way older because a lot of people in nursing homes were playing the Wii. But like, but not only that, it was like, it was not just a thing for kids and families anymore. And they were really trying to like get back to that for some reason with a lot of their marketing. And I felt like a lot of it fell flat. You know, you look at the Switch's marketing, it's all like 20 somethings and millennials and 30 somethings, you know what I mean? Like, and they figured it out like, oh, gamers are getting older. You know what I mean? They want stuff that's going to be a little bit more sleek, a little bit more adult. And I think they just totally missed the mark with the Wii U marketing personally.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is completely true. I think they did a couple things, right? I think there was some thought that was going to be the SNES of the SNES to the Wii's
right.
NES,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think some thought it might be wise to implement a strategy similar to that era, which was family-centric, kid-centric toys. And then also Nintendo never did a good job. You said this again, so I'm kind of retreading, so I won't take too long, but they never did a good job explaining how to best use the device. You got to tell your customers how to best use the device and how they can have, in this instance, how they can have the most fun with it. Because if you can't get that message across to the consumer, they're not going to want to buy it. And then that small share of people who just thought it was an add-on. So they either skipped it or they were pissed because it's an add-on. Why do I have to add a thing on?
So that comment about showing off how it works, I think is what they did so well with the Switch, right? Like I remember watching those early Switch advertisements and being like, damn, I really want that. I want to be able to take the thing out of the thing, put the thing in the, you know what I mean? Like, and play
with the satisfying click and everything.
Play in handheld, take it to the rooftop party and give the thing to my friend. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that first ad was like, holy shit, you can take your console and hand parts of it to people. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the launch video was basically a walkthrough tutorial of a video game. It's like, I'm going to show you in 5 steps how this thing works. You can sit on your TV, you can sit on your couch. Then when you're done, you have to go to the party. You click in, you grab it, you go. It felt very reminiscent to like a complex-ish video game walkthrough of like a tutorial. Not a walkthrough tutorial, sorry. And I think that's why it worked. I mean, everyone got hyped because they saw exactly what it did, and they saw that it differentiated itself in the market. You know, because PlayStation or Xbox, you got to drop that thing by the TV, and it's at best you're playing with 4 people on the couch, or you're playing with people across the internet. But
certainly not on a rooftop.
Certainly not on the rooftop.
Speak for yourself, Patrick. I think hate to circle back to the Wii, but I disagree with some of the points of like Nintendo did a great job showing us what the Wii U is capable of. They always showed, the Wii U gamepad on the ground with a Wii remote playing golf or us playing it. So they showed us like what it is, how you play it. But the next question that, we've all said is like, how is it different? And what's the differentiating factor? Do I need to buy a new one?
Right. Well, I think it was somebody that said like, they just assumed that people would want to buy it, but isn't the opposite assumption like the thing that like everybody's got a Wii, and they're happy with it and they're casual players. You got to prove to them, like you just said, why should I spend more money to upgrade it when I'm happy with my current thing, right?
Right. And if they are basing it off the Super Nintendo, like their marketing strategy, like that back in the day had huge fucking pushback whenever the Super Nintendo came out. Which parents were like, what? I just bought a fucking NES. Why do I need to buy a new one? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And so I think like, if you're really marketing to a whole bunch of non-gamers and boomers and shit like that and old people that are going to be using these products for the first time, those are the same people that in the 80s or the 90s were like, what? No way. I'm not buying the new thing. This is unfair. You're just trying to squeeze money out of me. And so, I think they just really needed to like be like, this is the... I think it's great that you could use your Wiimotes like on the Wii U, but like putting so much of an emphasis on the old input methods being usable on the new one, I think just really killed it.
Yeah.
It's funny for those of us that are clamoring for the ability to have backwards compatibility in things, though, right? Like, because it kind of proves that maybe that's not the way they should do it.
Or at least don't lead with that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a kind of a side story, but similar to like naming failures, I think something that's very similar is like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with like Universal Studios Islands of Adventure. When that came out in the year 2000, it was Universal Studios Escape. But consumers didn't know what it was. They didn't know it was a theme park, didn't know if it was a hotel, didn't know if it was a restaurant, didn't know if it was downtown Disney. And so that first year, Universal Studios lost so much money because Universal Studios Escape, their brand new park with Marvel and Jurassic Park and all their new properties, it didn't differentiate from all the other parks. And so they changed it from Escape, which was a confusing term, to Islands of Adventure. And in a matter of like a few years, they got all the money that they lost that first year. And I think Nintendo similarly, while I think the name was confusing.
Yeah. Also, you don't want to put Escape into the minds of people that are like at a theme park.
I know, exactly.
you want to keep them in the park, not think that they have to get out. Yeah.
Don't get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matthew, to your earlier point, I don't remember feeling any significant Wii targeted Wii U branding or videos that showed it. I always remembered getting the demos within specific game trailers. So maybe that's where I always felt it. Maybe that's part of it too. The videos they produced to market that product just didn't have an impact, at least for a consumer like me.
Yeah, they were dull and uninspired and felt like it was below the average gamer, I think, at that point already. Yeah. Like the Wii would like to play, like was like so iconic in a weird way, right? It was like the Japanese businessman like showing up at your door and all that stuff. Yeah. And then for the Wii U, they were like, have fun with the Wii U and everything's fine. And it was just like, what? Where's the bite?
A good job with the switch of advertising to various markets. Like there are kid-centric commercials. There are, like you said, the millennials on the rooftop party commercials. And then there's like the dad playing under his kid's crib or whatever commercial or next to it. Like, and I think they've done a good job showing how this device can be played by all kinds of people, which maybe in different eras, they were only kind of marketing to one or the other, or mostly kids, to be honest with you. But we talked a lot about the sort of the history of it. And we don't have hours and hours, which obviously this topic could warrant. We have a lot of other talking points here. Is there anything y'all want to really make sure we hit, either in terms of the Switch era and currently, like, or maybe slogans or directs or
I'd like to talk about directs, I think, because that's something that started in the Wii U era, and we talk a lot about how the Wii U was like a marketing failure, but like also we did get directs out of the Wii U era, and that's like all Iwata, right? Like Iwata was like such a fucking chill CEO of like a giant public corporation. You know what I mean? If you want to talk about like what they did right there, like obviously, and I've been reading some of the Iwata Asks book, or the Ask Iwata book, and they talk about this, but it's like having just personal face to the company and speaking directly to people is something that you want to talk about these other companies copying. Everybody is doing now. Like that thing. Yeah, it just made such a huge difference then, and I think that stuff would have been even worse for the Wii U if they hadn't been doing these directs like in the day. And then we see now, once they figured out their more like broad stroke marketing strategies, keeping those directs for the hardcore players and the people that you already have, like, I think probably just has got to increase, the retention of your customers like so much, because they're not speaking to everybody with the directs. They're talking to the specific subset of people that are already customers.
Us and our listeners.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think having both branches, right, is a really good idea to cover your bases, right? And it also just, it just makes you seem like less of a monolithic money-making machine, like they seemed to the public persona in the 90s. And just I think that's a big shift that Nintendo was able to pull off.
Great way to disguise some ads, right?
Yeah. Make it an event. Yeah. like the Nintendo World Championships or something. Yeah, exactly.
And I think, to your point, David, they also do a good job of speaking to multiple audiences at the same time in those directs. Because I know, as someone who religiously waits for and watches them, I'm not going to enjoy everything, but they do a good job of making the content feel and flow the right way to where I'm not going to either wait for it to air and wait for a highlight later, or when my thing airs in the middle, when my Zelda Skyward Sword re-release airs in the middle, I'm not going to cut the thing off.
Right. Well, you always want to hear that one more thing, right?
Right. You always want to hear the one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us not to mention directs. I'm glad we talked about that because I think it just, the directs, we've talked about them in multiple main topics too, so I don't want to like spend hours on this, but like it really is one of the brilliant things that they've done marketing wise to get people to want to watch ads. It's like the Super Bowl, like where people are excited to watch the ads, where you're a little bit like, when you think about it, this is kind of dumb. We're excited to watch ads, but they've done a good job of hyping us up on ads.
Right. And it's also like, they've really understood the Nintendo fandom and the Nintendo community. Right. And that's something that in the modern era, I think that they have done really well. Nintendo like has a lot of problems like coming into the modern era, technologically speaking, or with their infrastructure and stuff like that. But I think that they have always been plugged into, the Twitter side of things, like following, knowing people well enough. Yeah. The tall, uncropped photos on Twitter. Right. And it's like, and they know they've got that captive audience there, and they know exactly how to like kind of, I don't want to say take advantage, but essentially take advantage of people's excitement for this brand, And so it's just a good way to do it in a way that doesn't feel like it's speaking down to the fan base, but rather like becoming a part of the conversation with them and adding new things to the conversation that they know everybody's going to be talking about anyway.
Well, to bring it back to kind of our last news item, I think it's like they dropped this Waluigi render in this Nintendo Minute thing, right? Like they post on Twitter this picture of Mario Sunshine 2 years ago, or whatever, and we did get a re-release of Mario Sunshine. Like these little hint things that aren't always hints and might just be little marketing, image drops, get us excited because sometimes they turn out to be something. And I think they've done a good job of those little Easter eggs and things like that too.
I think we'd be remiss and would be a little too circle jerky if we did not talk about some of the like really negative or predatory like aspects of Nintendo marketing as well. You've got on here in the show notes here, Patrick, brand ambassadors. There was the whole like Nintendo ambassador program, like on YouTube, where they, you could partner with Nintendo, but then you would have to share a lot of your revenue that you would make with Nintendo, and you'd have to be very aware of the kind of content that you were making and doing stuff with a certain kind of people. They've, for the most part, I think, done away with that program now, but like it's definitely something that has always seemed predatory. And when you compare it to the other companies who take any kind of free advertising that they can, Nintendo has always in the past tried to turn a profit off of anybody who's kind of shilling the work for them. And
over controlling their image and like it's fairly and understandable. I think any company is going to shut down a lot of fan, things that might make money, but Nintendo is particularly aggressive about that and particularly paternalistic and controlling of their image and in ways that seem unrealistic almost. Like, once you start putting stuff out into the world, people are going to start playing with those things. And like you said, they've kind of accepted some of it, but still not a lot. And I feel like that's another sort of negative Nintendo thing of like shutting down fan games and things like that.
Yeah. It's I think honestly the biggest waste of money that they've made, is just being anti-fandom with these basically these tributes that people are doing through these mods, and then also taking away free advertising money. It's just not smart strategy, and the other companies found success by just allowing those things to happen. That's all they had to do. It wasn't going to make any business move for Nintendo harder or easier. They just had to step out of the way.
Right.
Kind of put their face in it,
And like Sega is somebody who's embraced that side of fandom, right? And I think it's worked out really well for them to do that. And so, yeah, it's very frustrating to see that. You just kind of have to remember at the end of the day, like, this is a company that like is there to make money. And like, ultimately, if it's profitable for them to like work, with people and treat the fans with respect, then that's what they're going to do. But as soon as it becomes profitable not to do so, you also need to be aware of that. You can enjoy the product, but you can't just like think they're your friends because they like spend a bunch of money to like make you think they're your friends.
Right.
We've been talking for a long time, so we should probably wrap it up soon. I think we have to mention sort of the cross promotional stuff that's happening now that maybe it hasn't happened as much in the past with like the theme parks, in the future, and the Mario movie, I guess the past one and the current one. And they're sort of seemingly openness to these new avenues with the theme park and the new Mario movie, which is sort of a newer thing. I don't know. How do y'all feel about that? And then any other sort of maybe kind of closing thoughts on the topic generally too?
I feel like Nintendo likes to test these things out every couple of years. And I think specifically talking to the movie. And I think the success of that movie is going to be determined on how much Nintendo has their grasp in Funimation. Right? Not Funimation, sorry. Illumination.
Illumination.
So if they're holding it tight, I don't think it's going to go well. But if they went to Illumination and went, here's what we're thinking, here's the IP, and here's maybe the inspiration, go for it. That's what they have to do. They have to let these things go to have these successful cross promotions.
It doesn't sound like that is how it's going, to be honest. Like there was an interview we talked about last week where apparently like Miyamoto is like super hands-on on this project, right? And I don't blame them, after like their last foray into Hollywood, didn't turn out very well for them at all. And I think they really resented that project. But it's like, I do think that we're in, with Furukawa at the helm of Nintendo now in a post-Iwata world, like we're definitely seeing them reach out into all these new avenues, which is a pretty new thing for Nintendo. And I think that, like you said, Nick, they're like testing the waters, right? And I think that once they see like how much like game sales increase because of people going to Super Nintendo World, or how many people like buy new Mario products because of they saw the movie in theaters, like I think they're waiting for this data to come in, and then we might see them walk back from that quite a bit and then just kind of start focusing on their actual consoles and games again.
Nick, circling back to a comment that you said about Funimation, people think that Goku's coming to Smash. No one ever asked the question, is Mario coming to Dragon Ball? Yeah, I think what Nintendo's doing, the crazy shit that they're doing for like Lego, that's nuts. And the price point at that. And then, Mario Kart World Tour, it's like an RC car with, Nintendo
home
branding.
Circuit.
Yeah, home circuit. Thank you. That seems Nintendo is investing in other verticals, other toys that have like a sustainable model. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should call it, unless there's anything else somebody wants to say, just to get in here under the wire. Like all of our topics, we could talk about this a lot more, and I'm sure we will find another angle into this at some point. But we should, unless there's anything else, we should take I'm
just going to quickly say, playing with power, get in or get out, born to play, we would like to play.
We didn't get to really cover all the different
I'm
slogans.
Just reading the slogans off the show notes because we mentioned them up top.
There's more of them too. That's not even like some of the handheld ones and variations on them and stuff.
There's basically one or two per console.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But all I'll say before we move on is like, I'm very interested to see like what they do next. Now that they've combined the handheld and home console pillars, you were saying earlier, Nick, that those always had kind of different marketing blitzes and marketing pushes. Right. I'm very interested to see now that those are combined, how their actual like the brand awareness is going to like continue going forward.
I mean, first 4 years, so far so good. You know? I mean, they're making all the right moves.
I think real quick to touch on that, like I think it's the thing I was talking about where they showed this working for different generations. I think, I always felt like handhelds were more for younger audiences and the Switch really disabused me of that. And I think ads that show a dad being, playing next to a crib, which I've literally done. You know what I mean? Like,
I've done the airport thing where you like share a Joy-Con with somebody.
Like you envision yourself being like, oh, that console does make sense for me. You know what I mean? In different situations. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and look, it's an 8th gen console outselling 2 9th gen consoles.
Yeah, that's true.
I think like circling back to like all the theme park stuff. I don't know, from my anecdotal experience, it seems like people are going to theme parks all the time with the rise of all the immersive Meow Wolf stuff. And Wizarding World down at Universal Studios. I wonder when we'll see more Nintendo theme parks and larger Nintendo theme parks and more Nintendo IPs represented there, and not just Mario. Maybe we'll see Animal Crossing or some other IP. Maybe we'll see a Star Fox or
there's no way they're ever making a fucking Star Fox theme park, man. Are you kidding?
Ice climbers.
An ice climbers world.
Balloon fight.
Ballsy time to get into theme parks, Nintendo.
When we start making those jokes, it's time to move on. So we'll take a very brief break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing recently. I have been playing... I don't know if there's anything new to report, but I've been playing more Monster Hunter Rise, which I really like. Like we talked about Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. I'm on the 3rd game. I'm nearing the end. I'm on the last chapter of that 3rd game. I've really come to fall in love with this series. It's got some problematic characters. It's not perfect, but it's really enjoyable. And the 3rd one is the best one. You can't jump to it and enjoy it in the way that I am without having played the other ones, because there's characters that are coming back and that kind of thing. But man, the 3rd one is really great. It kind of brings people back in and weaves stuff in. And I've also been playing a little bit of Smash Ultimate lately, and there's always been some speculation about Phoenix Wright being in Smash. And I'm like, man,
that would be awesome.
I would really like that now that I enjoy this game. It would make zero sense. I don't know how they would do it, but that would be exciting for that reason too. And like the sound effects and the characters I've really become invested in. And I think the judge
from Ace Attorney should be in Smash with this big beard. Yeah.
Phoenix Wright is in Marvel vs. Capcom.
Oh, is he really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. That makes sense actually. But so maybe there's a moveset to borrow from that, right? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should mention. New Pokemon Snap. I didn't get a chance to talk about that a ton. Y'all did a lot though. I beat it with my son.
Oh wow.
We at least rolled credits on it. We didn't like fill out the everything or whatever, but really fun to have that because he's just obsessed with Paper Mario, the Origami King, and that's all he wants to play again now that we've rolled credits on Pokemon Snap. But I'm hoping Game Builder Garage or Miitopia or something will work to break that spell. But anyway, that's me. Right. I've been playing those games.
Hey, I'll go next. I've been playing 2 games. One, I played Donut County. Had a fun with that. And that's because I forgot to charge my Switch before I got on an airplane. So in a quick amount of time, I downloaded it and played it on my iPhone. It was really fun.
Oh, you beat it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great game.
It's super. I wanted it to be a little bit longer.
I
wanted to swallow more stuff in holes.
But that's also what's good about it, right?
Agreed.
Like,
it's like a chiller Katamari Damacy.
Much chiller.
Super chill.
Because I think I talked about that. Like when my son and I played Donut County, he could play that completely on his own. And I was like, this is a lot like Katamari. Let's play that again. And he's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
After 10 minutes of like, it's not working. Yeah. But it's so much more accessible.
I know. It's great. The second game that I played with, which I talked at the top of the show, I was at Meow Wolf, Mega Mart in Vegas. And this installation, it has more games in it. It's got actually some like scavenger hunt kind of mechanics where you have to find things in the world or have objectives in the world. And it was weird. It triggered the escape room part of my brain. If you've ever played like a Myst game or been to any escape rooms, it's very similar like that. So you're talking to strangers and you're trying to figure out where pieces of information are, what you need to learn. And it's very gamified, which adds to and takes away from some of the experience. But overall, it was super, super fun to be in that world and play those games and be back in Meow Wolf.
Nice. Cool. And is that on the eShop?
Yeah, you can download it for $60.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, I'll go next. I've been playing a smattering of random games. I have been streaming more. The other day, I played through Pilot Wings for the Super Nintendo on stream, start to finish. I just like rolled credits on that game. It was like a 2-hour stream. Just like started it from the bottom. Now we're here. So I might be playing more. I don't know why I said that.
Start from the bottom now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I'll probably be playing some more games. I also streamed F-Zero GX and Super Monkey Ball. Playing a lot of like GameCube games through like Wii U emulation that I have on there because I don't have like an HDMI output for my GameCube, so it's been nice to play some GameCube games through there. Look out soon for a Wave Race Blue Storm stream, playing all the weird, obscure GameCube games that everybody wishes Nintendo would bring those franchises back. I'll probably be streaming those pretty soon.
Yo, let's get Wave Race back.
Dude, I fucking love Wave Race. Yeah,
if we can't have F-Zero, can we have Wave Race?
Yeah. And F-Zero GX, goddamn, that game is so fucking hard.
We didn't talk about this in the main episode, but looking at some weird marketing stunts, but Nintendo sponsored a wakeboarding team during the Game Boy Advance era. And they were like the Game Boy team, and they were like professional wakeboarders and like kiteboarders.
Yeah.
Like
I had that on some of my weird early 2000s stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to roll back around to Nintendo marketing again. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, I only say that, David. I want to see more Nintendo get into their extreme sports.
Yeah, an extremely goofy movie era Nintendo. Yeah. And then just some other quick things I've been playing. I picked back up Clubhouse games again. I've been playing a lot more Hanafuda online. I fucking love Hanafuda, and like now that I'm all vaccinated, I just like want to get with my friends and like play physical Hanafuda because I actually have a Hanafuda deck, which is like so weeb of me, but like seriously, it's such a fun game. And if you have Clubhouse games and you haven't played Hanafuda, I really recommend you play it because there's always people online to play with. And that's a blast. And then, other than that, played a little bit more Disc Room. Been playing some of that. And then, I picked up Super Mario Galaxy again and was playing through a bit of that game. Just love those games. I think like that'll probably be something else that I stream pretty soon is Super Mario Galaxy 2 because I have that on my Wii U and really wish that they would bring that to the Switch. So I'll probably be playing that pretty soon as well. But anyway, that's all old shit for me. What about you, Nick? What have you been playing?
I feel like similarly old shit. I, on a whim, saw that there was an escape room game on sale on the eShop, Palindrome Syndrome. It is not good. 2 out of 10. Do not recommend. So
right. Good to know.
But I felt it was cheap enough. I think it was like $2, $2.50. So I felt like being part of the industry, I had to play it, but it was hard to get through.
Is that on you buy it on Switch?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it on Switch.
Nice.
Have you played it on another system?
No, I saw, did you see it from like a Reddit post?
I think so. Yeah. I think on the Nintendo Switch deals post.
Yeah. I saw that one too. I was like, I've never seen this game. Escape rooms. I love escape rooms.
Don't bother.
Okay.
Heavily discounted for a reason.
Yeah. And then my godson was over recently and he was scrolling through my library and saw the Ghostbusters remastered game. So I actually started playing that with him. And I forgot how good that game was.
Yeah.
The story is actually decent. And the gameplay is not too bad. Especially when you get to that weird goo gun that you can get. So we were playing that. And then my other godson, who's much younger, came over and we restarted Luigi's Mansion. So all the old stuff.
Spooky stuff, too.
Spooky stuff, yeah.
Lots of vacuums.
Yeah, lots.
Very good. Good to hear.
Awesome. Well, then I guess that does it for this episode on Nintendo's marketing. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on and talking to us about this.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll have to have you back. Thanks to MilkyWay.co, does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, I am PDYX.
Hey, I'm on Twitter, Matthew, MATHYOU.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Nick? Where can people find you online?
I am everywhere at Nicky Jalnap. weird thing, but just spell it out phonetically. You'll get it.
Very good. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our episode on Nintendo's marketing strategy. Like we said, there's a lot to go over. And in fact, I think we'll probably circle back around to some of this again in a future episode because there's just a lot to pour over in this. But other than that, that's going to do it for this episode. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook, at Switch Headz on Twitter. And of course, you can always join our Discord and our Facebook group, both of which are bustling communities where we would love to have you involved. And remember to send us questions. We got that email. We'll be doing a special episode here pretty soon, answering questions that we get in from you guys. So make sure you keep sending stuff in. We love the questions you've been sending so far, and we'll be answering those soon in a very special episode. Other than that, guys, be chill out there. We got an awesome episode for you next week with a couple great guests. We're not going to tell you what it is, but god damn it, tune in because you're not going to want to miss this one. And then other than that, just be safe out there. It's time to go out in the world and take trips, and we're all going to Las Vegas and shit, but be smart about it. Don't be an idiot. Keep wearing a mask. Get vaccinated. We love you very much. Wash your hands. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.